Today we're talking about a cult classic, vibration cooking. People love it because of its low country inspired recipes and because of the charismatic writer, Mrs. Vertamae herself. She may be one of the most important culinary griots you've never heard of. Let's get into 5 recipes inspired by her and some delicious wine pairings. Ready or not, it's Family Meal. At Family Meal, we make memory-making meals with a splash of wine. Our first course for today is this layered omelet. It has all the good stuff you want in an omelet. It's very savory, but it's not heavy. First, we'll mandolin the potatoes. Add salt and oil and put them in the oven at 350 degrees for 40 minutes. When they're ready, we'll chop them into a hash. The next step is to saute and chop the rest of the vegetables. Then whisk the eggs along with melted butter, add herbs, salt and pepper, then chop them all up. This is what keeps the dish light. Now comes the interesting part of preparing an omelet, the layers. You can make layers in your pan or with a sleeve. This order makes for a nice color in the final dish. Potatoes, then peppers, then eggs, then ham. Make sure to press each layer to compact it. Everything is cooked so you can serve it right away or heat it up a bit in the oven. Doesn't that look like the start of a great meal?
I like that the omelet's not heavy, it's a little light.
The wine option for this dish is Bodegas Navarran Brut Cava from northern Spain. We're comparing the 2017 and 2018 vintage. These sparklings are Macabeo dominant, like most cava. Chorizo is the second big grape in the blend. These wines taste like lemons with a lot of minerality. The 17 is a bit richer since it's aged 1 more year. It's darker in color too, but both of these are crisp and light wine, and they're great with this rich but light omelet.
I really like the
Do you?
It's got a different mix of different blend of grapes too.
Right.
I'm sorry, son.
You like the 18?
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting for me. So this is delicious.
Our next plate is a loaded baked squash. First, cut the squash into sections and remove the seeds. Then wrap them in foil with butter and bake at 400 degrees for 30 minutes. You'll have to shake the foil every few minutes so all the sections are well coated with butter. To start the toppings, saute the chorizo until it looks like ground meat. Next, we're going to upgrade some Brazil nuts. Miss Vertamae talks about Brazil nuts a lot in her book, so I had to have some in this menu. Melt 1 tablespoon of butter and toast the nuts until brown, and then add 2 tablespoons of powdered ginger and salt to taste. Remove them just when they start to get a bit brown. The chutney's got some tasty spices too. There's fennel and cumin, all with tart apple. Fry the spices until fragrant in 1 tablespoon of butter. Caramelize the onion over low heat for 20 minutes. Then add the apple and cook until it's soft. About another 5 minutes is just fine. Stir the sugar, salt and pepper and lemon juice in and remove from the heat. Now top the squash with as much of these toppings as you want. It's called a loaded squash after all. So I suggest that you really go for it. A bit of chorizo, then spiced nuts, then chutney.
Well, the spike was real nice.
Yeah.
I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah, the apples are amazing.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the wines. We have a Ribolla Gialla from Friuli Venezia Giulia in northeast Italy, near the border with Slovenia. It's a common grape in this part of Italy and Slovenia, but it's not seen much elsewhere. It tastes of citrus fruit, apples, and honey or honeysuckle, a nice complement to the slightly sweet squash. The second wine for this dish is a medium-bodied Garganega dominant white blend from 2018. It's from the Veneto, right next door to Friuli Venezia Giulia. It tastes like citrus, white pepper, with a hint of ginger. This wine will be great with the toppings. Each wine picks up something different in this dish.
Okay, so that's the one I like better.
Same here.
Yeah.
Ready for some stew? Think of this dish as a callaloo with coconut milk. It's got all of the good stuff: okra, pork, shrimp, and lobster. We start by boiling the pork. I'm using a smoked ham hock until it's tender. Chop it into bite-sized pieces after it's cool. Strain the broth from the pork to get rid of the bits. Now add the vegetables: garlic, onion, spinach, and the okra. I just trimmed the stem end of the okra and I left the pod whole. This does 2 things. First, it was probably the most beautiful okra I'd ever seen, and I didn't want to cut it up. Also, this reduces the slime if people don't like that. When the okra is cooked through, you can remove it from the broth so it doesn't get mushy. You want firm okra when you serve. Cook okra like you do asparagus. The seafood is boiled separately for about 5 minutes until done. You don't want overcooked seafood. We add the seafood and coconut milk to the mix and heat until steaming, but never let it boil so the coconut milk doesn't curdle. Don't even let it get close to a boil. And now let's plate. Put a bit of pork, shrimp, and okra, and a few pieces of lobster. This stew is killer. It's creamy and luscious, just like the wines we're having with it. We have 2 Malvasia to go with this creamy soup. Malvasia grapes are known for giving off strong tropical flavors, which is great for this dish with coconut milk. First, we have Cantina Venosa Verbo Malvasia from 2019. It's from Basilicata in southern Italy. This wine was one of the favorites of the meal. It's very fruity with flavors of pineapple and mango. It's not a high-acid wine, but it has enough acid to keep the wine crisp. Serve this wine very cold so it seems fresh. Our second wine is Sagratis Ciuta Malvasia 2016 from Friuli Venezia Giulia. This wine is quieter and more delicate than the first, but it's very tasty. It's got an aromatic herb characteristic and a hint of apricot. I think both were nice with the stew.
This one is my favorite, by the way.
Which one is that?
The Cantina.
Mm-hmm.
I really like it. I love the fragrance. It's just yummy.
It's like you're smelling the flower.
Ready for dessert? These are crispy on the edges and chewy in the middle. Plus, they have that crunch from Mrs. Vertamae's favorite nut, Brazil nuts. You'll love them. Start by beating the eggs and add salt, sugar, milk, and cinnamon. Alternate between the dry and liquid ingredients. When it's well mixed, add the melted butter and the nuts. A little tip, the batter will work better when it's refrigerated for about an hour or so before cooking. To cook it, drop about a 1/4 cup of batter in a skillet greased with peanut oil. Turn it when it has many holes. Make sure both sides are well cooked. And this is how this sweet dessert turned out. You can serve these with fruit or syrup, but we enjoyed them with sorghum ice cream. The perk of being an eater, check out that recipe on the blog. It's delicious. The dessert wine for this meal is Cesar Florido Moscatel Dorado from Jerez in Spain. This is a sweet sherry. Serve this wine very cold. You might get a bit of flowers, salted caramel, and roasted nuts from this wine, which should be great with these nutty crepes and a molasses ice cream.
Not okay. This is superb with this unbelievably perfect mash.
Excellent.
Yeah, really.
Excellent.
Every
Ice cream is-
component.
You could call Miss Vertamae Smart-Grosvenor a food griot. She was a cultural guardian of Geechee culture and of African American food traditions in general. Vibration Cooking has dishes from her childhood, but also of all the interesting people she met through her life, from the Low Country to Paris to New York. She called it Afro-Atlantic cooking, the foods that Black people made on both sides of the ocean and their relationships to each other. She was most known as a food writer and culinary anthropologist, but she was also an actress and an NPR commentator. If you've read the Alice B. Toklas cookbook, there are similarities between these two books. For me, both books are about the way well-cooked food and a well-lived life are intertwined. I think that's why these recipes made for such a memory-making meal. In the next episode, we'll take a look at 4 great Southern cooks, all from Georgia, which explores the fascinating flavors of William Mann, Ruth Jenkins, Beatrice Nice, and Daisy Redmond. See you next time.